Hello, all. How are you? I'm in a little bit different setting today. I was working from a different place and realized I needed to jump on the live. So you're getting me. You're getting me in my glasses and a little more casual than usual. But yeah, it's just me. A little more color in my face because I was on vacation last week. So yeah, it's great to see you guys all. I see so many. Laura, you get the prize for being the first. Laura Ann Heaton Gray get the prize for being the first one on. Um, at Dawn and Gary and Ruben Dodd, I see you. Robin, Wendy, hi, you guys. Amy, Leona. I may not get through all of these, but it's great to see you all. Mission Viejo. I used to live in Yorba Linda, so I know that area. La Habra, Casey, I know that area well. Um, and yeah, it's so good to see you. And I missed you guys last week. I mean, I was on a cruise, so I I can't say that, I was forlorn because, I was having fun with my sister, but I did miss seeing you. And today you get to see the appearance by Rudy the Wonder Dog because he's sitting here right here with me. This is Rudy, my um he's being feisty. So anyway, that's Rudy. The one that I you hear barking sometimes because he won't he decides that he wants to start talking to me the second that I, hit live. So anyway, he might make an appearance or something. I don't know. Today's a little bit of a let's see what happens. But I'm just excited to be back with you guys. It's so good to see you guys. And yeah, so I had a great holiday, Gary. And a great week. It was just me and my sister, and we're we're very close. In fact, I moved to be closer to her a few years ago, but we don't get much. We're both so busy, we don't get a lot of one-on-one quality time. So being together that full week, it was just great. We laughed, and my our parents loved cruising, and so there was a lot of reminiscing about our parents and times with them and things. So it was a special time. It was a great time being with her, and definitely refreshing. So um, anyway, thank you for giving me that little break and that time off. Um, my neighbor's goats say howdy from Texas. I love it. Oh, okay. So one of the things that came up today when I was working, trying to book some actors for one of the projects that I'm casting, I thought would be worth going over one more time in a little more depth, and then I will get to your questions for sure. Um, so I see all these Nashville people, and one of the projects I'm casting is in Nashville. So we want to make sure we are going to put out a breakdown. It's a project called County Rescue, and we'll be putting out a breakdown probably by the end of the week for several of our local hire um, roles that come in each episode because it's a series. So each episode, there's two or three, maybe four people who come in and out of the story or come into the story for just that one episode. So I want to make sure that you guys know or tell your agents to keep an eye out for it. I will make sure it gets released on Actors Access as well. So just keep an eye out for that later in the week. County Rescue, um, and it'll be all of our local hire Nashville day player roles. Now, if you have a way to work local hire, it's non-union, by the way. That project is non-union. So if you have family or friends and a way to work non-union in that area, feel free to submit as well. And yeah, so anyway, one thing that came up was this whole idea of local hire. So I went to book an actor who had said he could work local hire in his slate. And when it came down to it, then his agent came back and said, "Oh, but he needs like housing and mileage." And I had to like question, but wait, they mentioned they could work local hire, and so I want to be clear. I want to be sure you guys are really clear what it means when you say I can work local hire, because we take that very seriously, and sometimes um, it it's really, really important if our budget is tight or if it's a role that has to be local hire just for budgetary reasons or scheduling reasons. Sometimes it has to be local hire if it works like one day this week. And then, the next week it's 2 days. And then the following week it's only one day. That's awfully hard. You can't house someone for 4 weeks when all they work is one day a week. So roles like that have to be local hire so that someone can just go home and be home and do their other work and things during the time they're not working, and then just show up and shoot on the days that we need them. So sometimes again it is budgetary because we can't afford to fly someone in and house them, and sometimes it's just based on schedule. But either way, when you say, if you say in a slate or a note or any of that, I can be local hire to, I'll use Nashville as the example. What we take that to mean is not only are you either in Nashville or you can get yourself to Nashville, you have a way, you have housing in Nashville, and a, now whether that's a friend or you're couch surfing or whatever it is, we take that to mean you have a place to stay and we do not need to provide you housing. And it also means you have a way to get to and from the set each day. Local hire is you show up at the set at the time we've told you to show up, and that we don't have to provide anything else for you. We don't have to, have a, because those are resources, to provide a PA, to provide, a ride to and from a hotel. Say you flew yourself in and you said, oh, but I can work local hire. And you said, I'll fly myself in, I'll put myself up, but you don't have a way to get to and from the set. Well, that means that we have to figure out a PA or someone who can, that we can cut loose to come pick you up and travel you to and from set. So again, that's not a local hire. So it's really important that you understand local hire means you show up on set ready to go at the time that at your call time. Okay. So when you say you can be local hire, that is our expectation. Now, on a SAG project, there are certain parameters from SAG that don't, SAG says you can't waive certain rights, one of them being the local hire status on a project. So on a SAG project, there are parameters that make it more difficult if you are not a true local to actually be hired as a local hire. And that can become problematic. So your willingness to say, I can work local hire in a certain city, in Atlanta, in Nashville, whatever, may still not be applicable if we have to show SAG proof that you are in fact a local. The other thing about saying you can work local when you're not actually local, um, if if the production is taking advantage of certain regional incentives, tax incentives and film incentives, oftentimes you have to prove, you have to show that the actor has a driver's license from that state, has housing from that, like, a permanent housing, which, if your parents lived there, if you grew up, let's say you grew up in Atlanta and then you moved to LA, and you're saying, well, I can work in Atlanta as a local because your parents are still there and you can stay with them. You can use their address, which, that typically would qualify in most cases. But you have to be aware it isn't just as simple as you saying, hey, I'll work as a local hire, and then that means you'll get hired as a local hire. Depending on the production, depending on what tax incentives they might be taking advantage of, you may have to have further qualifications than just your willingness. Okay. But going back, but in non union, there aren't those parameters. If you say I can work local hire, then we take you at your word. So again, I just want you to understand when you say, "Hey, I can be local hire," you hear a beeping sound. There is no beeping here. That is really weird. Okay. Are you still here? I'm seeing those notes. That is so weird. Okay, let me. Hmm. Well, that's not good. Huh. Okay. And you're still hearing it, right? I think it's just a tech glitch. Yeah, because I don't have a horn here and nobody's honking a horn or beeping a horn. So I'm not quite sure what it is that would be the issue. So maybe it'll be better. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Um, so anyway, when you say you can be local hire, if it's non-union, we can take you at your word as long as you understand what local hire means. You get yourself to set, you show up at your call time, and how you got there and where you came from, we don't know, and it's not an issue of us. The other side of it is a modified local hire. And typically, modified local hire means you're going to either need housing and or mileage to and from. Typically, modified local is a city that you could drive to and from and that you're willing to drive to and from, and but you may need help with mileage and or you may need housing. So if you're going to slate that way, you could say that, I'm a modified local to Nashville, I would need housing, or I'm a modified local to Nashville, I have housing, but I would need mileage covered. So just be as clear as you can about that, so that we know. And oftentimes it isn't a requirement. So I don't want you guys feeling like you have to say you can be local hire or else we won't consider you. That's not the case. But the further along we get in the casting, the more um, the more pressure is put on the budget. And then we typically do get to the place where we only have budget for local hires. So then you giving us that information becomes important, but only give it to us and only say you can work local if you actually can. Okay. I don't want you to feel like you just always say you can work local so that you can get the job. Just be honest, and it will, if it works out, great. If it doesn't, then there'll be another project. So yeah, I'm open to other questions. I just wanted to uh, kind of give that explanation because it came up just today with the actor saying one thing in their slate and then the agent coming back and giving me different information. We ultimately did get it worked out, so it was all good, but it just made me think I should probably cover that. Okay, Raquel, my daughter just submitted for county rescue. Awesome. She lives in Maryland. Would she still be considered? Um, Now, I don't know how young or old your daughter is. We don't have a lot of young roles. Um, so on county rescue right now, our main cast, our ongoing recurring lead and supporting lead recurring cast is so far set. We've made selections there. So what we'll be putting the breakdown out for is those roles that come up for each episode, each the characters that we need for each individual episode. Raquel, she's 27. Okay. So yeah, she probably did submit for um, some of the other roles. I don't know offhand where in the process she was, or her specific submission. But Maryland, there are roles in which, yes, we were willing to bring people from wherever if they were the right fit. So it would not, being from Maryland would not have immediately eliminated her depending on the role. And I'm guessing it would have been one of our main roles because that's what we put the breakdown out for initially. So, is County Rescue a Western? I can ride a horse, English Western or bareback. It is not, Wendy. County Rescue is a story based around some rookie EMTs, and so it's modern day, not a Western. I do a lot of Westerns, but this one is not a Western. But that is good information. And always put that and highlight that as a note if you are submitting for a Western, because oftentimes, not every role, but oftentimes riding a horse is a real advantage. And I have a couple of directors and producers who, if it's a role that needs to ride a horse, you better be able to ride a horse because they aren't messing around. They've had too many times where they've hired an actor who can't ride, and they end up having to shoot around them and having to simplify the shots and the scenes what they wanted to do. So that's an advantage, and I would make sure you list that if you're auditioning for a Western, or if you're submitting for a Western, make sure you list that experience, because not everybody can ride a horse. And if you say you can ride a horse, you better be able to ride a horse. Oh, we do get that. We get actors who say, "Oh, yeah, 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 I can ride." Or "I haven't ridden in a few years, but I'll brush up. I'm good." And then they get on set and they can't ride. So you guys got to be honest. It does not serve you well to embellish, or I won't say that you're outright lying, although it is a falseness, but oftentimes there's an embellishment of what someone can do or their skill set. And it's really important that you're honest about those things, because it can make a real problem on set if you get there and you're in over your head. I hear about it, and it's bad all the way around. So be honest about your skills, about your special abilities, and the roles that are supposed to be yours will be yours. Don't feel like you have to constantly sort of stretch the truth in order to like get something. I don't think that's the way God is designed for you to get the roles that you're supposed to have. So, okay. Ivy, thank you for all of your advice. You are welcome. I'm collaborating with some other actors to create a short. What film festivals allow teen submissions? You know what? I don't know that I can answer that. I know there's a lot. In fact, there's several that are just teen film festivals, teen filmmakers or younger filmmakers. But I don't know the specific names. And if are you talking, Ivy, about in the faith-based genre or just in general? Because you might go to Christian Casting Community or her app, Laura May's app, and I think at one point she did create a list of all the different film festivals, a resource page for that. That's something I should probably do at some point, but I just haven't had the time to do that. But it would be a good thing to have. So I can't answer that question. Oh, Content in Texas has teen submissions, so that's great. And Christian Worldview has young filmmakers um, submissions for their film festival as well. And I know there's a ton more. In fact, there's several faith oriented young filmmaker festivals. One in the Valley in California. So yeah, there's several. So I think if you Google and do some research, you'll find, or ask that question on the Christian Casting Facebook page, and I bet you someone will send you some sort of resources that'll help you with that. But there are a lot of them. So I'm super excited you're doing them. That's great. Great collaborating, great taking the bull by the horns and jumping in and creating content. I just think that's fantastic. So good for you. Good for you, Ivy. That's awesome. Gary. Hi, Beverly. I noticed ever since self-taping started due to COVID, I noticed it's hard to cast as opposed to when I auditioned in person. I noticed my booking the job self-taping is a lot harder. Is this common with many actors? Um, when you're saying it's a lot harder, I'm thinking that you're saying it's harder to you're not getting as many bookings. Is that what I'm hearing? I think that's what I'm hearing, is that you felt like you were getting more bookings than you are now. Um, First of all, I think ever since COVID, we've also it has not yet settled into a new norm. At least it doesn't feel that way for me. A new norm as to the production cycles and the amount of productions. Feels like we kind of gear up and we have a lot of people in production and then something happens like the writer's strike or other things where then the production goes way down again and so then there's a lull. So I don't know how much of it has to do with the self tape versus just a general condition within the marketplace. Okay, I see that's what you were referring to. Um, it it's also maybe a product of the fact that we're probably seeing more people for every role, so the competition is a little bit greater, I think, in most cases, because we are able to see more people for roles now in the self-tape world. So that's two-sided, right? The upside being you're probably getting asked to audition for more roles, or we are sending out more requests and seeing more people, so more people are getting opportunities. But the flip side is there's a greater sense of the number of people that you're reading against for one role. So without seeing a tape or knowing, I can't really give you any specifics, but it's it could be a combination of those things. If you feel like what you're doing, the work you're doing is comparable, I would maybe get take your self tapes and show them or get counsel for somebody. If you have a rep, have them look them over, make sure that there's nothing happening in the self tape environment that maybe is a negative or a distraction at all. But otherwise, I think it's just a combination of those elements that might just feel different for you. Yeah. um Francis, do you have any further series or films that we should keep an eye out for? Will you do Actors Access and Faith-Based Casting Site? Thank you in advance. So I do not. I love that Diego just put, "What's up? Hello from the guy behind the camera." He's the dude that makes it all happen. He's the dude. One of these days, Diego, it's going to have to be the two of us talking, right? Back and forth. I love it. So anyway, to answer your question, um, I I have the day player roles that are, or the roles for each episode for County Rescue. That's the only new breakdown that's going to be going out that I foresee um, for a while, because I'm going to actually be focusing on development on a couple of my own passion projects that I've been working on. And so I'm going to take some time to dedicate to focusing on them for a few weeks. And then I'll let you all know um, when I have a new project coming and new breakdowns out. So I'll try to be really consistent with you um, about I'm looking about making you aware of something that's gone out or a breakdown that's gone out. And typically, I use breakdown services and I use faith-based casting. And you guys on faith-based casting, if you're given the opportunity to go ahead and tape without being asked to tape, meaning when we post on faith-based casting, if we have the sides ready and available, we will post those, which means you can tape. You can take it upon yourself to do your tape. You don't have to wait to be asked. You don't have to wait to be invited. You can go ahead and tape and send in your tape. All of you should be doing that. There's no reason not to take advantage of that or to sit back and wait to be invited. Because on the breakdown in actors services, you have to wait until you're invited to do a self tape. But on faith-based casting, you don't always have to. If the sides are provided, you can go ahead and tape. So you should be just doing that. Take it upon yourself. There's no downside at all, right? You're honing your craft, you're keeping your muscles going, you're keeping the energy going um, for yourself as an actor, and you're turning in an audition, and you never know what'll come from that. So I just want to encourage you that that's something that is unique about faith-based casting. Um, when projects are listed on faith-based casting. Now, not every producer or every casting director makes that option available, but I typically do as long as I have the sides ready and available to post with the project. Um, so just keep that in mind. You guys make sure you're being proactive about that. Um, but yeah, typically I will do breakdown services for sure. And then actors access most of the time. There are times when I don't. If I do not have a lot of time, um, I sometimes won't do actors access just because the volume, I can't get through the volume in a short amount of time if I only have a very, very brief window to get a role cast. So that's typically the only exception to why I wouldn't. So, Donna, if you are auditioning for commercial and you're reading multiple parts, is it okay to read it? Um, I'm thinking you mean, is it okay to be reading your sides and not have them memorized? Um, so typically first of all, I'm not a commercial casting director. I should just say that. So commercials are not my expertise. Um, on the theatrical side, on the film TV side, I don't have an expectation that you be fully off book. Um, on a self-tape situation, I you can post the sides up to where you can glance at them or give yourself bullet points to kind of guide your way to give you reference points to in case to jog your memory in case you have a concern about that, or you can just hold them as long as same thing in an in-person audition. If you were holding your sides, you just needed to make sure you weren't buried in your sides, right? You can't have your face down like this. Um, and you so it's the same thing for a self tape. You can have them and hold them and reference as you needed, but you can't be looking down on them all the time. Um, Actors, I want to make sure you understand that you are being watched and you should be in character and actively participating in the scene, whether it is your line or not. So you can't do an audition where you come alive during your line and then during everyone else's lines, you're looking down, looking at your page. No, that won't work. You're not going to get cast. So that's the only challenge when you're not off book is that you have to know it well enough that you can reference quickly with your eyes or look down, um, but that you are engaged, you're actively listening, you're reacting appropriately, you're with living within the scene, that you are present in the moment of the scene, and you don't go dead when it's not your line. Okay, so yes, use a script, but make sure you're using it the same way you would in an in-person audition. That you aren't just looking down the whole time, because that won't go over well. It won't do well for you. So hopefully that answered it. Um, John, hi John. I recently heard Tom Cruise say in an interview that he never took an acting lesson in his life. What are your thoughts about that? Um, I, my impression of Tom, I don't know him. I haven't worked with him. My impression of Tom though is that he is a voracious learner. So whether he took a class or not, my guess is that he's one of those guys that was always observing and always watching the other actors on the set. And he was learning from them. He was asking questions. He was willing to be sort of mentored by them or glean from them. I mean, the fact that he's a pilot and he has all of these skill sets, does his own stunts, like there's still a hunger. He's still learning. He's still seeking knowledge about his craft. he he is hungry to know more and learn more and do more. Um, so whether he took a formal class or not, for him, as busy as he's been and the amount of people and, tremendous masters that he's worked with, he has had the opportunity to kind of learn on the job. But I think he would probably tell you he's learned from every job that he did. He just happens to keep booking jobs. So I don't know when he would have, yeah, I don't know when he would have had a chance to take a class in the middle there, but I bet you he would tell you he learned a lot from every actor he worked with, every director he worked with, observed, asked questions, was hungry for more knowledge. And I think that's how we should all be. But I still think that being in a class, whatever you need to be doing to be challenging yourself and growing and pushing yourself and getting honest feedback from people. Because that's the other thing about classwork is that you get feedback from people about the work that you're doing. You're not trying to do it all in a vacuum from what your taping room in your home. You're getting people to tell you what they're seeing and the kinds of roles that they're they're seeing as being a really good fit for you. I just think there's real value in that community that comes from a class and the challenge that comes from a class. I don't know that we always challenge ourselves to the degree that someone else who sees our potential can challenge us. It's like working with a trainer, right? If I design my own workout, even though I think I'm really pushing myself, it's nothing compared to when a trainer comes in and says, okay, here's your workout. Man, I'm left 3 times more exhausted. Um, but I'm also realizing I did way more than I thought I was capable of. So I think being in class works the same way. I think it's iron sharpens iron. You're pushed and pulled and stretched in ways that I don't know that you can do for yourself. If that, hopefully that makes sense. Um, so let's see. Um, Nishaika, Nishaika. Yeah, sorry if I think I've gotten your name wrong before, but I think it's beautiful. I just don't know if I'm saying it right. From New York, I love New York. I know you see many self tapes. Do you ever consider an actor for another role if they don't book what they? Oh, absolutely, all the time. We're constantly moving people. And no, I have not answered this already. We're constantly moving people around. What you submit for, uh, well, like I've told you with you guys with The Chosen, we only put a breakdown out for about 12 or 15 roles, when in reality we have 120 to cast. So you won't likely get the role you actually auditioned for if you end up auditioning for that show. You'll likely be put in another category just because that's the way that Dallas likes to do his casting. As far as him looking at roles, he likes to kind of consider them by category. So as we're going through those tapes and looking at actors, we're doing the same thing. Um, but all the time, we move you around. You don't even know that. Like even in the submissions, if it's a submission that doesn't look right for that role, but I know there's another one, I'll move you. So that's why maybe sometimes you guys will get an audition invite for a role you didn't even submit for. It's because we moved you over. So yeah, we're all about if there's another place we think we could use you, excuse me, we absolutely will move you. And that happens a lot too with once we get the audition and we look at the tape and we think, oh, they're not right for this, or they're a little older than we thought they were. So, but they could fit this role, we'll move it around. So yeah, that happens a lot. It happens a lot. Uh, Baron, it is frowned upon to be your own reader when doing a self tape. Is it frowned upon? Um, I'm assuming that you're meaning like with one of those programs where you can tape the other lines and then you read to that pre-recorded dialogue that you've done in advance. Uh, it's not frowned upon by me. I don't see it as an issue. I know, and I think most casting directors understand what you guys are dealing with on your side too. So we're not, trust me, we've heard some awful readers. I've had little kids be the readers for their mom. I've had, people with a accent so thick that I can't even really understand them, but it's probably the only person that the person had, around to read for them. So trust me, you doing your own pre-recorded dialogue is not going to be the worst thing we've heard. So no, I don't. I know you guys have a challenge in figuring that part out for sure. Do you teach on-camera classes? So I I have in the past. I haven't for a little bit just because my schedule has been so busy with casting. So one of the things that I am also going to be doing and giving some more thought and some more kind of dedicated effort towards is to figure out, because I do love teaching, so figure out if there is a place or a schedule by which I could start to maybe offer that an online version of that. Um, so it's possible that I will start doing that because it is actually something I really, really love to do. But I haven't so far just because my schedule hasn't really allowed an ongoing uh, thing like that. But I'm hoping I will. And I'll let you guys know if I end up doing that. I'll certainly will let you know for sure. Do you look at child IMDb when interested in? Um, I mean, I look at most actors' IMDb just because it gives me a one-stop shop to see like who the rep is and what the credits are. Um, but especially with children, if they don't have an IMDb, like that's not a huge deal, depending on the age of the actor. But IMDb is certainly a reference we use a lot. I won't say every single actor, but certainly when we're getting down to um, fine tuning selections, we'll look at IMDb's. And I don't mean like the IMDb star meter number, like that's not the end all be all for sure, but just at the credits and what are the projects and the roles and things like that is kind of what we're looking at. Oftentimes, there's more pictures we can see there as well. So IMDb is a very important tool. So to the extent that you can get your projects listed on IMDb or make sure any of your projects you've done that are already on there as a project, but that you may not be listed on, that you get yourself listed for sure. And like I've always said, Brooklyn said, IMDb Pro is the best. IMDb Pro is really what you guys, it's a small investment for a huge tool, huge tool. You should, if you're really taking it seriously, you should all have an IMDb Pro account, not just use the free IMDb. So, Donna, I see you said, does everyone need IMDb? I've done local commercials and background. I mean, if you want to go to the next level, if you're content with what you're doing and you're just going to stay in the local market, which is fine, that's great. You're just going to stay in the local market and just uh, kind of stay with the commercial side of things, then it's not a big deal. Commercials don't get listed on IMDb. But if you want to take yours to expand, take your career and expand into TV film, then IMDb having credits, because it legitimizes your credits. If a project's listed on IMDb, the perception, it's not always the truth, but the perception is that it's a little bit um, more legit. It's a real project. And we can verify some things. But if you are primarily a commercial actor and you're primarily in your local market, and if you're representing yourself or you have an agent in that local market and you guys are doing great and you want to just stay in that lane, then that's great. IMDb is not a necessary or important tool for you on the commercial side of things. So, Adam, I remember I threw a party when I got my first credit on IMDb. I love that. That's great. That's very fun. Yeah, it is. It is a big thing. It's an important thing. Same thing for me. My IMDb listing, my IMDb Pro listing is important for me. That, if a director or producer is thinking of hiring me, they're going to go to my page and look at my credits and what I've done and the actors that I've cast. So I'm in the same boat as you. It is an important tool for film and TV work. Okay, so I think let me see. Okay, so I have time for one more. Diego, if you want to throw up one more for me for this week, then Brooklyn, do you still like to look at websites or no? It depends on the role, it depends on the actor, it depends on if I'm not seeing a ton on IMDb, it's a newer actor or a younger actor. Um, or because that can be the case if someone has done a ton of theater, but they haven't maybe done as much TV film or they're transitioning, or if they've done a lot of like short films and things like that, where those short films don't always get listed on IMDb Pro. So I if I really want to learn more about them, or if I'm really considering them and I'm hungry for some more information or to learn more, I will go to websites. So I don't go to every actor's website because sometimes I don't need to. If your reel is listed on your Actors Access or on your breakdown, profile, and if you have IMDb credits, then I don't always need to go to your website. But my feeling is having a website is never going to hurt you unless you have content that's objectionable. But otherwise, having a website that has more information, that has a bio, that has more pictures or video clips and things that are at your other like your Actors Access profile, it's never going to hurt you. It's only going to help you. So if it's not too much of a financial burden on you, then I think it's always good. And it also, if I go to someone's website and it's current and it looks current and has energy and feels like you're actively involved, that also tells me that you are actively involved in your career, that you are spending your time using those resources, making sure that the tools that you have are current, and that you are taking advantage of whatever tools you have available. So that all just speaks to an actor's um, kind of grit and determination and drive for it. So, like I said, it's never a bad thing. So, okay, so I think that's it for tonight. Oh, Diego says for branding purposes as well, your website, like your social media, should be updated and current. I agree. And Diego's been a huge, huge, huge help for me on that front on the social media side. But I just was earlier today saying I need to go to my website. I need to update my website. So I have that same battle you guys do. Sometimes it's hard to keep up with it, but we really should, because a website doesn't do you good if someone goes to it and it just looks completely outdated. Then it's kind of like they don't care about that. And so it is a calling card of sorts. So if you're going to have one, just try to keep it updated. And I'm saying that to myself because I need to update mine. So there's all kinds of things I'm going to be doing during these few weeks that I'm going to pull back on actually actively casting a project so that I can get some other things done that have been on my to-do list for a long time. So anyway, I appreciate you all. Glad to be back with you. Thank you for letting me be in my little more casual setting. We'll be back to the normal setup next week. And yeah, we'll try to next week give you an idea of maybe some of the special. We have a couple special guests that we're talking about bringing on, and then of course we want to do another monologue night. soon. So I'll get with Diego. We'll plan out some dates so you guys have some forewarning. And yeah, we'll just let you know. But appreciate you, and we'll look again back at these questions and try to get to some of them next week. So we'll see you next Tuesday. Appreciate you all. Love you. Have a great evening.